Hey, good morning, everybody. Today is going to be a quick lesson about different ways that you can animate subjects and objects within a scene. So I'm going to show you two different things that you could kind of use as a way to sort of practice this and see how animation works in a scene. So I have some very basic objects here. You can see when I look at the scene, I have a square. I also have a sphere, and what these are going to do is basically follow the principle of like squash and stretch that occurs in many animation projects. So the first thing, though, just to review, is when you are ready to import the package file, which is going to be on Canvas, what you do is you right click again in this project window area here where it says assets. That's your project window right there. You right click, you click on import package and then custom package. And then wherever you have downloaded this, it's going to be somewhere like right here. So in this case, it says lesson two animation, which is this particular one. You double click it, it's going in my case, it's gonna say, like, I've already imported it, but it says nothing to import. But if you haven't imported it yet, what it's gonna show you is a list of the stuff that's going into the file. In this case, again, it's right here, and it's gonna usually have a scene. I have an animator, like the state machine, which you won't be working with much for this assignment, a script, and then the animation file that goes with each of these. So what the animation looks like is this, and I have one that has a script attached to it, and I have another that I have animated. So I'll show you that right here. Okay, so this square is it's basically contracting and then going out, and then this sphere here is moving up and down it's moving like a ping pong, and it's also doing the same thing. But you can notice that it's not quite as smooth as with the animation. So I'm going to kind of explain both of them, and you can think about which way would be the easiest when you're looking at like, choosing how you would want to animate objects in your screen. So here's this cube, which is what has the animator on it. And I'm going to show you where you can find the animator. So if you go to Window and then animation, you'll see this here. Now, this is what I have for the cube. So the way that you change things is if you go to each of these keyframes right here, you can add each of the animations. So you can see like at the beginning, when I press play, excuse me, it's going to be normal scale. At 10, it's going to be slightly different. 20, it's going to be different. 30, and then 40 right here. And so all you have to do if you want to change something, and I'll just show you a quick example, is you would click Add Property. I'm going to change its position because I've already kind of changed its scale. So I'm going to have this go in a different position right here. And I'm going to keep the keyframes largely the same. So I'm going to keep this right here. You can see this, it says that this is the position. And then I'm going to change this position right here to be, and you can see where it is at this point, but I'm going to have it be at 2, 2, 2. I'm just going to keep it really pretty simple. And then you're going to go to same thing, 3, 3, 3. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to just loop it back to its original position. Now, just because I've changed it here doesn't mean that the animation is actually going to save. What you have to do is I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm going to press this record button, and then I'm going to hit play. And what will happen now is you'll see it run through this. I'm going to hit play, and then I'm going to stop recording. So what this will look like on the screen once I hit play now, you should see it start to change position and loop. So let's just watch. There it is. Okay. So that's how you would go about animating. The nice thing about animations is that you don't have to really go in and code anything. But you do have to like keep track of the positions. It takes a little bit of precision and practice to get it, but it is really cool. Like especially if you just have things that are moving, like opening a door or a looping animation where something's moving back and forth. It can save you a bit of time with code. Now on this sphere, all I have is a script. I just added a script full disclosure, this was a script that I just used AI, Microsoft Copilot to get something really quick. And I just tested it, added it onto the script, and this is again what it looks like when you hit play. It moves up and down and it changes its position. And you can change all of this stuff here. And if you look at the script, again, nothing too crazy here. You're going to have your variables up here. And the nice thing with scripting is like once you've made a script that kind of works, you can just reuse the script. So in this case, like I may want to change different things about it, but I don't necessarily need to, like if I made another game that had this type of animation, I would just use the same script and maybe change a couple of things in it. So it takes it's a little less, like especially nowadays when, like I mentioned, I just went into AI and asked it to generate a script that could do something similar to what I animated here, and it took a few seconds and it worked. However, I do have a little bit less control, especially if I'm not like a programmer and I'm not going in and like modifying the script. So there's pros and cons to it. You'll also notice, like I said, that when we look at this animation, it's not nearly as smooth as the other one in terms of its like motion with the squash and stretch, which was sort of the focus of the assignment. But if, depending on how close somebody is to it, depending on what else is going on in the scene, they may or may not notice it. So there's pros and cons to each. You would just have to decide which one worked better for you. So for the assignment, there are a couple of questions. One of the questions, of course, is, which one do you prefer? Some other things that you would be thinking about is, in terms of like changing things, what would you change about it? Is there a way that if you scripted it, you could make this maybe a little bit more smooth? The last part of the assignment is to change something with one of the animations, which I just showed you. And then, of course, to go in, maybe you're going to add some materials so you can add some lights or something like that. But maybe I want to change this to be like a red color, and I can just add it to this shape here. So very simple changes, but if you're working on a game, a lot of times what will happen is you'll have somebody that's doing the animation, somebody that's doing the code in this case, somebody that's doing the scene design once the animations work, and that's kind of how the workflow goes. So you'll see the questions on Canvas. But if you have any, if there's something that's not making sense or you're not getting the animations to work, just let me know. Um, that's what we're kind of reviewing at this point. Another thing to see as well, and I'm just going to show you this. If I go to animation, if you wanted to see the object, let me click on it. Excuse me. You can see the curves here, and then that is showing you like for each of these positions what it looks like. So if I zoom in and I look at this, you can see again at the keyframes what each section is doing and it's color coded. And so that's how these work. Okay. So I hope you have fun with this. Again, there's a lot of cool things you can do with animation without coding. So there's a lot of advantages to both. But Unity does offer a lot of cool things for both styles of animation if you're interested. All right, so have a good rest of your day. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you tomorrow.